When we think of prison, most of us imagine cold concrete walls, iron bars, and that harsh buzzing sound of doors locking. But what if I told you that when the ultra-wealthy end up behind bars, their experience is not exactly what you'd call ordinary? Now, I'm not saying it's a 5-star hotel, but it's also not the nightmare most people expect. Some of them get softer landings, private cells, even access to privileges that the average inmate could only dream about. In this video, I'm going to show you how money, influence, and connections completely change a prisoner's life. And trust me, once you hear these stories, you'll start questioning whether prison is really punishment or just another pathway for the elite. Hit the subscribe button, press the bell icon, because this is going to surprise you. The reality behind Club Fed. The term Club Fed is something you may have heard before. Doesn't it sound a little strange? Like a fancy hotel you'd book for a weekend trip? There's no way that it's Cancun or Las Vegas. MinSec refers to federal prison camps with the least amount of protection. These are the places where white-collar criminals usually end up. That's right, these are the people who were caught with shady business deals, secret trading, Ponzi schemes, and not paying their taxes, but not with violent or gun crimes. Pay attention now. When people think of jails, they imagine scary, high-security prisons. Imagine tall concrete walls with barbed wire going around them, armed guards in watchtowers, and prisoners locked up in small, cold cages. That picture is stuck in our minds all because of Hollywood. That's not really how Club Fed is. You might think you were at a weird summer camp with tighter rules than boot camp if you didn't know any better. There aren't any individual rooms. You live in dorms. There are bunk beds. Living with people you didn't want to. The bathroom is shared by everyone. It's like the most public sleepover you've ever had that never stops. Also, the place doesn't have heavy walls around it most of the time, and there aren't many staff members for the prisoners. There are about 24,000 people living in these camps, which is about 15% of the people who are in federal jails. That gives you an idea of how big they are. That's a good amount, right? Such a large crowd would fit in a small venue. But first, let's clear something up. It's not really accurate to call these places luxurious. It's still a jail. As someone who has been both a defense lawyer and a prosecutor, Mark McDougall said it best. These camps may not look as harsh as maximum security jails, but they are still prisons. Nobody will be able to see or hear you, and you'll have to stick to a strict schedule that will make you miss having a bell schedule in grade school. That land has tennis courts and a baseball field, but they're not just there for looks. They're not vacations. They're just things that keep inmates from going crazy. A tale of two justice systems. Now things begin to look a little unfair. 2 poor people and 1 rich person both commit the same crime. Who do you think will have a smoother ride? You'll probably get that big raid at 3 a.m. if you're poor and someone says you did something wrong. Police banging on your door, lights flashing, and people looking through the blinds next door. What if you have a lot of money? Most of the time, the system gives you a different mat. Your lawyer will likely call you and say something like, "Yeah, so you need to see the cops at 10 a.m. on Thursday." Then you check in at the jail gates like you're at a hotel. There is already a big change. Even more trouble comes up when you look at punishment. It has been found that judges have different views on white-collar criminals, even if they don't say so. Most especially if they are white. It thinks of them as good people who made mistakes. On the other hand, poor people and people from minority groups are often treated worse, as if their acts prove they are bad or dangerous. The crime was the same, but it was seen differently. What does that mean in the real world? Setting up. You are more likely to be sent to one of these low-security camps if you have a lot of money. You might be most upset about the bad food in the restaurant or the annoying people in your bunk. You could end up in a much worse jail with barbed wire and a whole new level of danger if you don't have the money or the right people. This is shown by Michael Cohen, who used to be Trump's lawyer. People who have been convicted of white-collar crimes often go to Otisville to serve their time. Many wealthy prisoners feel at home in this community, which serves kosher food and holds religious services once a week. Plus, it's only 70 miles from New York City, which is nice. The pieces fit together well. Daily life in minimum security. So what's it really like to live in one of these camps? The day begins early. Around 6 a.m., most of the time, breakfast is offered in a cafeteria-style setting from 6:30 to 7:30. You can't get fancy omelets or smoothies made with real veggies. This makes me think of the cheapest restaurant you've ever been to. Everyone has to work now. If you don't have a good reason not to, you will get a task. What about the cash? 12 to 40 cents an hour. You did hear that right. Elizabeth Holmes used to be in charge of the very successful company Theranos. She makes about $12 an hour at FPC Bryan in Texas, where she works now. That really wakes you up. Some jobs require you to cook, clean bathrooms, do upkeep work, and work in an office. Michael Cohen used to fix things for Trump for a lot of money, but now he's in jail fixing HVAC systems. He was even known as Mr. Fix-It. Think about how you used to make deals in Manhattan, and now you have to clean out vents for little money. That's the term for that kind of shock. The better paying jobs, most of the time it's office work, managing people, or being in charge. They're competing because, let's face it, no one wants to mop floors all day when they could help an office with papers. In the middle are jobs that need skills like welding or teaching other prisoners. You can take it easy when you're not working. Part of the deal is fun stuff like walking paths, basketball courts, exercise equipment, and at some camps, tennis or bocce ball fields. There are libraries, TVs in public spaces, and groups that teach. In North Carolina, Bernie Madoff, who was the master of Ponzi scams, found his groove. He would wake up early, make coffee in his cell, and listen to NPR. After that, he would do his everyday tasks in jail. What's funny about it? It was his job to run the computer room, even though he didn't know much about them. So it's not a free pass just because there aren't mobs and barbed wire every day. When you're a millionaire, one night your life changes and you start to count your worth in cents per hour. The commissary system. Now things start to get interesting. This little area inside the jail is called the commissary. It's like a corner store, but the rules are very strict and the prices are very high. They feed you and give you things you need, but most people want more. Better food, coffee, and deodorant that really works. If you have money outside of school, your family can also send it to you. That's when you shop at the store. But there is a catch. Even if you have a lot of money, you can only do so much. It's usually around $300 to $500 a month. You can only do so much, even if you're a billionaire. Paul Manafort quickly learned that lesson. He is known for having very expensive tastes in clothes. He had to eat the same amount of food as everyone else. How much do they cost? That hurts. It's a lot more expensive here than it is at the shop. It's possible that deodorant will cost $7. You can get reading glasses at Walmart for $3. What about $15? This hurts the prisoners a lot. In jail, they don't make enough money to buy anything. Rich prisoners, on the other hand, don't have to worry as much because they can get money sent to them from outside the jail. Of course, people do find ways to get around the rules. Some wealthy prisoners give money to the accounts of other criminals. They buy things for themselves and keep a small amount as payment. Inside, there's a small economy, and rich prisoners hire personal shoppers to do their shopping for them. It worked this way for Jeffrey Epstein, even when he was living. Just 2 days before he died, he bought things from the store that cost almost $74. An FM radio and headphones were among these things. When he died, he still had more than $500 in his account. In other words, money does talk, even in jail. Rich people don't have all the answers, but they still find ways to improve their lives. Celebrity treatment. Now comes the part that interests people. What happens when famous people or business leaders are jailed? Do they just seem like everyone else? Not really. There you have it. Prisons need to think about safety. Putting a famous person in the same group as regular people makes them a target. They could be people who want to be friends with the prisoners, people who want to test them, or people who see them as a way to become popular. This means that the government usually does things ahead of time, like keeping people apart or putting them in safe housing. There are people like Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, and Martha Stewart who have used the machine. Most of the time, they end up in different areas or even rooms designed for one person. They are being held because the jail does not want things to get out of hand, not because they did something wrong. For some reason, that protection can make things a little more relaxed. Living alone means fewer fights and a better place to live. But don't forget that it's still jail. They make fun of Alderson Federal Prison Camp by calling it Camp Cupcake. And Martha Stewart found out the hard way that it's not a good place to be. Doesn't it sound cute? But she wrote in her letters that her bunk bed's metal springs were sagging, and that she was stripped naked during screening. She also said that she was put in solitary confinement for a day for touching a guard's keychain in a way that she thought was harmless. For 24 hours, that little move cost her food, drink, and everything else. Rules are rules, no matter how good you are at TV. Right now, Sean Diddy Combs is also in jail at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. There are interesting people around him like Sam Bankman-Fried, again, to keep everyone safe. Even so, it's not a fancy Star Wing. For Holmes, it's not quite as crazy. Something funny? Some jails had to lock down when Lindsay Lohan moved around, not to help her, but to keep things in order. Just think about how many criminals would stop what they were doing if a famous person walked by. People around the world are changed by great prisoners in this way. While you're in jail, fame will follow you, but that doesn't mean it will be easy. It can draw more attention to the mistakes and make them stronger. The Bernie Madoff phenomenon. Let us talk about Bernie Madoff, who is one of the most well-known people who went to federal jail. The person who ran the biggest Ponzi scheme ever. The amount is $65 billion with a B. You'd think that people would stay away from Madoff once he got to Butner jail. Not at all. He pretty much became famous while he was in jail. People inside were very interested. Many people were interested in him, almost like a rock star, but some people didn't like him. Imagine going to jail and everyone whispering, "That's him, that's the person." Someone who was there, Sean Evans, said he was just like that, a rock star. In a strange way, that also helped Madoff. He did a very bad thing, but it wasn't violent. Being well known can sometimes help you get ahead in jail. People were interested in his crazed past, his boat, his homes, and the stories he told. The surprise is this. Madoff himself said that being in jail was almost like being free, like a weight was taken off my shoulders. He was full of lies and always moving things around to keep his plan going in the real world. In jail, all of that went away. Put down the fakes and calm down. It's just a habit. Early in the morning, make coffee, listen to NPR, do some work, and talk to prisoners. He told reporter Richard Behar that he felt safer in jail than he had in decades, which is strange. Of course, he still had to deal with the truth. His health got worse. He now has arthritis, heart trouble, and more. He tried to get out on humanitarian grounds, but they wouldn't let him. He died in 2021 while he was in jail. Even though he was the king of the white-collar prison block, he couldn't avoid that finish. This story about Madoff shows that time and health don't matter if you're a famous thief. The walls close in at some point. Prison staff, relationships, and treatment differences. Okay, let's be honest about something. It's always a tricky relationship between guards and inmates, but the mood changes when the prisoner is a well-known investor or former CEO. Rich prisoners are usually less dangerous. They don't lead gangs, they aren't violent, and they don't cause trouble every day. That makes guards feel better around them, sometimes even polite. If you've been a doctor or a business executive, you know how to talk to people in a way that makes them feel more comfortable. That could change the whole relationship. Bernie Madoff is in charge of the computer room. That's a great example. He shouldn't have been in charge of tech stuff, but the guards thought he ran a financial empire, so he must be able to do it. Even when it's wrong, the aura of competence stays. But it can also turn. Some guards don't like rich prisoners. They think of them as signs of betrayal, greed, or privilege. Martha Stewart's short time alone, that's how fast things can change if a guard decides you crossed a line. Prisons are trying to teach their staff to treat everyone with respect, though. Doesn't always happen, but the push is there. At the end of the day, rehabilitation depends on being consistent and showing basic respect. Wealth can improve relations between guards and inmates, but it can also make you a target. It all depends on who is watching you that day. Rehabilitation and educational opportunities programs are one area where rich prisoners often do well. Federal prison camps aren't just places to kill time. They also offer education, job training, and even college classes. And studies show that it works. Education inside cuts the chances of coming back by almost 15%. Plus, it helps people find work after they get out. In these programs, rich inmates often do very well because of their backgrounds. They have the study skills, self-assurance, and social capital to get more out of them. Some even end up teaching, which gives them a lot of respect in prison. There are also fun things to do, like sports leagues, art classes, music and fitness programs, things that help people stay sane. Rich prisoners are more likely to get involved in these activities because they don't have to worry as much about survival. Michael Cohen began writing his book while he was in jail. Some people write business plans or plan to do good things for others. In a way, prison forces them to think and plan. Not everyone uses it well, but those who do can leave with a plan for the next part of their life. So, if you have the right attitude, prison can be less of a dead end and more of a pause button, a strange kind of reset. So yeah, prison changes everyone. But for the rich, it's less about survival and more about rehab. How to spin the story when they're back in the world. What do you think about this? Comment below, hit the like button, and subscribe to our channel for more updates. Thanks for watching.